Morning, everyone. This is the first webinar in our series of Survive and Thrive 2020. This is a group that we've created by collaborating with other local businesses to try and help you overcome the current financial crisis and come out stronger. The first webinar that we're doing is all around the current financial implications of Covid-19 and the latest announcements from the government. It's the 25th of March, so things are moving at a rapid pace and things are likely to change rapidly. So this is an update based on what we know so far. And today I'm joined by the lovely Helen Fleet, Financial Director, who's going to be talking through her perspective of what this all means for businesses. Just a quick introduction to myself. My name is Mike Pye. I'm the owner of a marketing consultancy business called MP&Co, and we help fast growth businesses create bespoke marketing strategies and connect them with an elite team to help them implement it. Just introduce Helen. You can talk about her background.
Okay, hi everyone. So I work as an outsourced finance director for our clients. I work alongside my husband. We have an accountancy practice and we've both been in the game for about 20 odd years now. I work with my clients to provide ongoing strategic support, and you'll see there, that covers a wide range of things, but as you can imagine at the moment, it's primarily concerned with cash flow challenges and trying to wade our way through all the government offers that are there for the moment to get us through this crisis.
So we'll jump straight in. Helen's prepared a really in-depth presentation, and we've had a number of questions come from business owners about how this affects them. So we are going to go through and present these slides and jump in with some of those questions as we go through it. Just a note before we crack on, we're going to be producing a live webinar after this event to do some live Q&A. So if there's any additional questions that arise once you've been through this, then you can pose them then, and we'll update you on when that will be as soon as possible. So over to you, Helen.
Okay. So I think a lot of businesses really started to feel the pinch at the end of the week before last, and we started to get a lot of calls on how we really cope with this. I think as things have escalated over the last week, it's been hard to stay rational for some people as you get nervous about clients leaving and not knowing how much work you're going to get over the next few months. So the first thing I'd really encourage you to do is these things here I've lifted. So we want to really understand what your current position is, and then we can establish which of the government initiatives are applicable to you and which ones you feel like you really need. So the first thing to do is to review your expenditure. Just go through all the outgoings that you have every month, and is there anything that you can cut back on? So is there anything proactively you can cut back on first, but then also recognising that some of your day-to-day expenses you won't be incurring now. So travel costs, entertaining, things like that you know are going to drastically reduce over the next few months. So what you want to do is go through all of them and get yourself a realistic idea of what your outgoings are going to be over the next 3 months. And the next thing is looking at your income. Now, for some people, I know, we have a client who is in the retail. Their income is going to be zero for the next 3 months. For other people, it's quite varied. For those people with retainers, they'll find some of those retainers have been cancelled. So it is very difficult, I know, to assess this. But if you can look at your income and really look at your worst case position, then hopefully, we'll be performing slightly better than that. And what this will give you then is that real clarity on what your net position is going to be over the next few months. So once we've got that, we can start to look at what government and other options are available to us through our banks to help us through this time. So I'm going to split all the government initiatives down into 2 sections. So the first section we're going to look at are grants and assistance they're providing that is non-repayable. And on the other side, we're going to look at the various loans and tax deferral offers that have been made. So you will have heard lots of these, job retention scheme, small business grant. There's lots of these different names out there. So hopefully what today's webinar will do is just help you to understand which of those are relevant to you and when they'll be available. So we're going to jump straight in. So the job retention scheme. So the whole purpose of this is the government is trying to ensure that people stay employed for now. So it's trying to encourage businesses where they would previously have laid someone off to keep those people on the payroll, and they will reimburse 80% of their costs. So lots of you will have heard the word furloughed. That means someone is still employed by your business, but they are not working. And that's a real key element of it. How do you do that? Well, in terms of what you need to do internally is you need to decide which employees are affected, and you need to notify them of that in writing, because it still forms part of their employment contracts. So it's really important that you do that. Decide who it's going to be, put it in writing. Now, the way that the mechanism is going to work is going to be online. There's going to be a portal during which HMRC will then reimburse you for that 80%. So you will still need to pay 80% of someone's salary, but then you will be able to reclaim it. Now, as you can imagine, there's great pressure on HMRC and the government at the moment to set up all these online systems. So we don't have a date as yet, but they are hoping that it will be in place before the end of April. So do we have any questions on that one, Mike?
We did, yeah. So the first one is the government are saying they will reimburse 80%, but what happens to the other 20%? Is it an obligation of the business owner to pay that 20%?
No, so there's no obligation. If you can afford to fund that 20%, then brilliant. You know, obviously that will help your employees. But if you can't afford to do that, then there's no obligation to do that. And
the £2,500, is that a net or a gross figure?
There's a bit of a debate on this one, I'll be honest, at the minute, Mike. Some people I talk to think it's gross, some people think it's net. I don't have a definitive answer on yet, and hopefully that will be one of the details that comes out in the next few days.
Cool. And how soon do you think that businesses will be able to get that money?
Yeah, I think, you know, as I say, they're hoping to do it by the end of April. So the reality is people are going to have to pay their staff now in March, but hoping that we will start to see that system up and running early to mid-April so that we can get that money back by the end of April.
Yeah, quite a few people that I've spoken to have wondered what this means for company directors who pay themselves a minimum salary and an additional dividend. Is there anything being shared about what happens to those people?
In terms of the salary, they will fall under this scheme as they are employed by those companies. So they'll be entitled to the 80% of that salary if they are furloughed. Clearly, the dividends is all profit related, so I would anticipate that all sits outside of that. So at the moment, the government is focusing on the 80% of what your salary is. And I've seen comments that people believe that will refer to your February salary, but I've not seen anything concrete yet on that.
Right. Hopefully there'll be an update soon.
Okay. Okay, so that's it on the job retention scheme. Obviously, there's a lot of overlap here with HR and employment rights. So hopefully Olga can cover any of those related questions in her webinar.
Yeah, great.
Okay, so moving on to the small business grant scheme. So this is a one-off grant of £10,000, and this applies to anyone who currently qualifies for small business rates relief. In terms of how you get it, your local authority should contact you, so you don't need to make an application because they already have the details of people who are entitled to small business rates relief. What I have seen with a couple of councils now, in particular Stockport, are asking businesses to just go on and fill in some details so they can obtain the business's bank details to provide the refund. Again, no definitive date on when this will be through. I think when it first came out, they hoped it would all be ready for early April. But as I say, some local authorities are releasing information on their websites now. So my advice would be to monitor your local authority website and obviously keep an eye on the post.
Okay.
Any questions on that one?
How do businesses know if they actually qualify?
Okay, so when council tax bills are sent out, normally they should go to that business with the rateable value of that business. It will say what they are qualifying for in terms of small business rates relief. So they should either have seen that bill regularly, or they may have filled out a form to show that they qualify for that in the past. But the key fact is your local authority will contact you. So if you're going to be eligible, you won't miss out on that, because they should be contacting you directly.
Yeah. So quite a few people I know think that they may be eligible for it because they rent some space, or they cohabitate with another business in an office space.
Okay.
But I suppose for them it's not applicable. It's only applicable to those people who actually pay the business rates. Yeah.
Yeah, but it would be some people get they'll get 100% small business rates relief, so they may not pay any rates. But quite often with people in shared offices, it depends really how their rent and rates is structured. If the building is paying the building owner is paying all the rates and they're not kind of charging that out to clients, it really depends on whether you've had that rates bill specifically addressed to you as that business within that property. And that you've seen on that document that you get small business rates relief.
Okay.
Okay, and the next grant then, and this one is for 25k, is for people in the retail, hospitality and leisure industries. This is for people operating from smaller premises. So as you can see there, rateable value between 15 and 51. So it's important there to get your rates bill out, see what the value is, and check that you fall into one of these kind of groups of people in terms of retail, hospitality and leisure. The government website does detail quite a lot in terms of who falls into that. And again, your local authority should contact you about this grant. So my advice would be the same as with the smaller 10k grant, is make sure you keep an eye on your local authority website.
We had a question about what businesses actually fall into being a retail, hospitality or leisure. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, so they did some kind of examples, so shops, cafes, restaurants, cinemas. It is quite broad in terms of if you go onto the website. There is also quite helpfully on that website a list of businesses that do not fall under this scheme. So they've been quite specific. So if you go to, we'll make sure we put the link on, but if you go to the government website and just click on that section, it does give you quite a detailed list of who falls into this.
I've got you might not be able to answer this. It might be better to look at the website, but I've got a client who is who wholesales fashion goods, but also retails them online and at shows across the country.
Okay.
So they're kind of in the middle of those two areas. Because they retail in some shape or form, do you think they would be eligible?
I'd have to check the website, but I think, you have to think about what the purpose of this is for, and the purpose is there to help people who they know will pretty much be shut down during this period. So I think they'd need to go on and just have a look at that to make sure there's not any specific exclusions for people who are doing things online. But the purpose is there to help people who they anticipate will have to close the doors during this period. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, so moving on then to the business rates holiday. So this applies exactly to those same businesses we just described, so retail, hospitality and leisure, but was also expanded to include private nurseries who are providing care for early years foundation stage. So imagine all the private nurseries that we send our children to before they start school. And that is a business rates holiday for the period from April 2020 to March 2021. So many people will have already received their bill for that period. That won't be required to be paid. So what is likely to happen is your local authority will send you a revised bill, which will show the initial fees and then business rates holiday. So it takes effect from there. So we should hear from the local authority soon. If people have got a direct debit due to go out in April, then I would make sure that you cancel that.
Okay, one question we've had on that is, do businesses have to contact their local authority even if they've received their bill already?
No, they shouldn't do, because as I say, that restated bill should come through the post soon. As you can imagine, there's a lot for them to deal with at the moment. And I'm not saying this is the case, but if I was a local authority, I would be focusing on the grants first rather than the the business rates holiday, because that's money that's going to go straight out, whereas obviously the business rates holiday is just a case of not collecting that money. Just to clarify that point on the direct debit, is you're only cancelling this if you're very sure that you fall into those groups and therefore you don't need to pay it. Well, one thing I would add in terms of business rates for people who fall outside of this group is that the councils are trying to be understanding. They are trying to support businesses generally. So if you don't fall into this group and you're not entitled to a business rates holiday, then I would give them a call and just see if there's anything you can do to, try and spread the next 3 months' costs over the remaining 9 months of the year, or just see if they can help you out.
Okay, great.
Okay, on to statutory sick pay now. I'm going to call that SSP for the rest of this to save the mouthful. So normally, SSP is paid by an employer. They can't reclaim it. But in this instance, for anyone who is paid SSP because they have been diagnosed with COVID or they are self-isolating, then if you are a company with fewer than 250 employees, you can reclaim that SSP that you have paid out. Again, they are developing a rebate system at the moment. We're awaiting confirmation as to when that will be up and running. So you will need to pay that SSP to your employees in the first instance, and then you will reclaim it.
Okay. Do they need to get proof that they're self-isolating or have symptoms?
Yeah, on the government website, they don't ask for proof of this. What they have asked is that employers keep a record of who was off and for what period. They do say that employers can ask for evidence, and there is, I think, an option to get a kind of self-isolation notification from 111. But really, in these times, I would hope that people wouldn't try and abuse this system. So for employers, hopefully you've got a trustworthy employee that you can believe when they say that they're isolating for these reasons or they're sick with COVID. And so you don't need to get any kind of doctor's note or anything like that. Okay.
And I'd assume as well, if you're furloughing employees, it's one or the other. You either get the 80% or you get SSP. You can't furlough them and claim SSP.
That's right, yeah. And really, if you are furloughed, you're going to be in a much better position because you're going to be getting 80% of your salary, whereas SSP is significantly below that. So I would hope that would perhaps stop anyone trying to abuse the system because they have that more certainty in terms of their income anyway.
Yeah, sure. Brilliant. Okay, thanks.
Okay. So in terms of all the options that are there in terms of grants and money that we don't have to pay back, I think we've covered all those. So what we're on to now are loans and payment deferrals. So the first thing is VAT. So what the Chancellor said last week was any VAT payments that are due between the 20th of March and the 30th of June do not need to be paid. So it's important that you still file your VAT return, but you'll be given until the end of the 2021 tax year to make those payments. It applies automatically, so you don't need to phone HMRC to ask for this deferral. It applies automatically and it's available now. So all you need to do during this period is file that return. You don't need to phone them. So I just want to be very clear on that.
Okay.
Got any questions on that one?
Yeah, we had a few. My VAT was due before the 20th of March, but I didn't pay it. Can I just leave it?
The answer to that is no. So it was very specific in terms of this period. So if you had a VAT payment that was due, say, on the 7th of March, and you were already struggling and you couldn't pay it, it's important that you phone HMRC to get time to pay on that bill because that fell before this VAT deferral period. And in a couple of slides, I've got the number that is there to help us with time to pay arrangements. Okay. So this is only relating to this very prescriptive period.
Great. Another question, my VAT quarter end is the 30th of June. Does this mean I won't have to pay that VAT return?
Again, no. So that will be due for payment on the 7th of August. Get my months right. Yeah. So that falls out of this period. So again, if after this quarter ends and there's no extension of this, then again, for that August payment, you would need to phone the Time to Pay helpline to get help for this. If you can see, essentially, I think what they're trying to do with this period is give everyone a quarter off. So if you've got a June quarter end, you're already getting the flexibility on your March quarter end. So really then if they allowed it on the June, it would be 2 quarters for those people. So I think that's why they're keeping that time period as it is for now. But there's still flexibility on things that falls outside of that period.
Fine. Another question.
Yeah.
I'm currently due a refund. Will I still get it?
Yes. Reclaims and refunds will be repaid as normal. So,
great stuff.
Relief there. Yeah.
Okay. I suppose just one final question for me. If like me, you're squirreling away cash to pay your VAT bill all the time and making sure you've got that segmented away, would you suggest that businesses use that money for cash flow for the time being, or just try and sit on it as much as possible, because you're gonna have to pay it eventually anyway?
You are, and that's the difficulty, isn't it? Because as you say, many of our clients do have a savings account that they put their VAT in. The reason that the government has done this is to give us all some headspace and to give us some extra working capital. So if you can ring fence that VAT payment and you don't need to use it until we get out the other side of this and you're back to normal trading conditions, then brilliant. But I think it's better if you keep it and repay it, once you know that that is the case, rather than pay it over and then suddenly feel you then, trying to find other funding arrangements to help you get through a difficult trading period after this, even after the lockdown. Yeah,
sure. Great, thanks, Helen.
Okay. Income tax. So this applies to anyone who has a self-assessment payment due on the 31st of July. This has been deferred until the 31st of January 2021. So there's no penalties or interest for late payment. It applies automatically. So again, you don't need to phone up to confirm that this applies to you. It applies to everyone. So anyone with a self-assessment payment due, it's not due until the 31st of January now. But again, same with the VAT, same with the income tax, these are deferrals. That money will need to be paid at some point. So it's just being very aware of this. This is just there. Both of these measures are there to help us defer cash flow pressures at this kind of tricky time.
Yeah. Okay, we definitely had any questions on that area, so we can move on to tax liabilities.
Yeah, so as I was mentioning there about those kind of, if you've got VAT payments due before or after that period that you feel like you can't pay, the other common tax liability that people have is PAYE. So they've set up this dedicated hotline. You can see the number there, and that is to ask for time to pay. Now, if anyone's experienced asking for time to pay in the past, what they've always asked is, why can't you pay it? What other arrangements have you tried to make to pay this, and when can you pay it back? So obviously they understand that it's COVID related, and they know that you're trying your best in terms of cash flow. So the third question still remains. They're still going to want to know how long it's going to be before you think you can pay it back, and over what period. So when you've done that cash flow that we talked about at the start of the presentation, just really think about, if you are struggling to pay a tax liability now that's not covered by the deferrals, how much can you afford to pay on a monthly basis, and over what period you're going to ask for the deferral, because they're not going to allow you to just phone up and say, I can't pay this and I don't know when I'm going to be able to pay it. They'll want to try and come to some kind of agreement.
Okay. One question we've had on this is, I might struggle to pay over PAYE in April. What should I do?
So obviously they're inundated with calls at the moment. So what I would suggest is probably just waiting a week or so to when you get closer to that deadline of when that PAYE is due in April. So maybe the week before, I would then call them if you still think you're not going to be able to make it. And also I think that gives us another couple of weeks for things to kind of settle down to the new normal in terms of lockdown, understand what really you think your trading position is going to be, and you'll probably be in a better position to give a more realistic offer to them of how you can pay that and over what period. So I'd say if it's April PRE, just wait a couple of weeks. The hotline will be less, might be a bit less busy, still be busy, but a bit less busy, and you'll have a better idea of where you are.
Yeah, excellent.
Okay. Yeah. And the last one is the Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan, or CBILS, as people are calling it at the moment. So, yeah, we love them at the moment, don't we? So this is a loan of between 25,000 and 5 million. The terms are between 1 and 6 years. The government has guaranteed that there'll be no interest on the first 12 months. Now, what's important with this, before I talk about the capital repayments, is this isn't a loan from the government. You're still going to normal lenders. So it might be your bank, or there's a number of other accredited lenders that aren't banks that you can go to. There's a full list. You can get to it through the main government page, and you can get to the British Business Bank, which shows all accredited lenders, but also gives some extra details on eligibility criteria and what's out there. Now, one of the big questions when this first came out was, okay, so this is a loan, when it might be interest free, but when do my capital repayments start? And this really varies. So speaking to a contact of ours yesterday who does a lot of commercial funding, he's seeing different reactions with different banks. So some banks are actually offering 12 months repayment holiday on both the capital and with obviously no interest. Some banks are offering 6 months. The very important thing about this is just a normal commercial loan. So they will only loan to businesses that would otherwise be viable if it wasn't for COVID.
Right, so not giving it to anyone who applies for it. You've got to still qualify and have a business case for it.
Exactly that, Mike. So you've really got to think about, if COVID hadn't happened and I was applying for a loan, do I think I would have a good chance of getting that loan? Kind of demonstrate, that I'm running my business efficiently, that I've got a plan of where my business is going to come from. They're going to ask a number of questions. So this is not just an easy application. And also think very carefully, because after the lockdown, we're all going to have to build our businesses back up. You're going to then have to make these repayments once you're back up and trading. So in normal trading conditions, could you have afforded these loan repayments? So it's a big one, this one. And it will be appropriate for certain businesses, but not for every single one. So look at that website.
But you've still got to face the fact that you're going to have to pay it back, and it might implicate you even worse in the long term potentially.
Yeah. So just think it's just a normal loan. So how would I pay this back once trading returns to normal?
And sorry, what was the website that you said to go and find out about?
If you go through, we'll put these on. If you go through the main government website and go to the business interruption loan section, it will take you through to the British Bank website, and it will take you through to the eligibility criteria and all the lenders. But the first place to start, to be honest, Mike, is with your own bank, because they will be on this scheme. So speak to your normal bank relationship manager if you have one. I know that we don't have as many of those now, but speak to them first. And what the banks are also being told is to look at alternative forms of finance as well as this. So when you phone them up, they won't automatically go, yeah, let's go straight down the loan option. They might say, well, let's say you've got a big debtor book. What about invoice financing as an option in the short term? They may also look at your overdraft. So I am aware that banks are being more flexible on overdrafts at the moment. They are providing some banks are providing extensions without a detailed application required and without an arrangement fee. So it might be, you might look at this and think, well, I don't need 25,000. I need, I've got an overdraft facility. I just need an extra 2,000 or 3,000 to kind of get me through the next 6 weeks. So speak to your bank relationship manager first, because it might be that there's more flexible options out there that are more suitable in the short term.
Right, excellent.
Okay, and then the big question, the most common question that Andy and I are being asked at the moment is about the self-employed. It's an extremely concerning time for this group of people. Nothing at this moment has been confirmed which directly links to income in the same way as the job retention scheme does. But yesterday the Chancellor was talking in Parliament and saying they are working on something. I expect something to be out in the next few days, if not today. I understand from stuff I've read, Martin Lewis is doing a lot on the money savings expert for self-employed at the moment. he said he's had discussions with the government that say something will be out by Friday. That's all we have at the moment. I have seen draft legislation which suggests they might use a basis of something like 80% of an average month based on the last 3 years' earnings. But at this moment, we don't know for sure. So all I can say to the self-employed community is, you know, and I feel emotional for you because I know how hard this is just try and hold on and just try and, you know, speak to your bank about overdrafts, about temporary measures that you can get in place to just see you through till we know what the answer is going to be. And hopefully, you know, when it does come out, it might be backdated to kind of help us all out as well. But it's a real challenge for the self-employed, and I know that there's been lots of press about that putting pressure on people and not being able to socially distance as they would like to, because they just, if they don't work, they can't feed themselves. So let's just hope that something comes out really quickly and it does what it needs to do. The one thing I would say, as has happened with all of these initiatives, is the government is really keen to get these headlines out there, so it's not just radio silence. I think if they wait till everything is perfect and everything, you know, they can answer every question, we'd perhaps still be waiting for a lot of these. So whilst headlines might come out this week, it might create still lots of questions for you. But hopefully then the detail will follow next week. But at least we know you've not been forgotten, and something will hopefully come out very soon.
You can't answer this yet, but I suppose it's a talking point. You know, many people self-employed might still get a little bit of work over the next couple of months. What if they earned a couple of £100 or 500 quid? Do you think that will make them ineligible because they've earned something, or do you think it'll be sort of pro rata? I know you can't answer this at all, but it's an interesting.
It's a really good question, and I think it probably explains why this has perhaps been dealt with much later than everything else. I think with the employed community, it's much easier. You know, this is your salary, this is what you got paid in February. We can see that, so therefore we can put measures in place to directly link that to what you got in the previous month. And we know you're not going to get any more or any less, so that's easy. So I would imagine that one of the reasons this has taken so long for the self-employed is they are trying to get something that is fair to that community and fair to everyone. And, you know, what we all need is some certainty. So, you know, questions like that, you want to make sure, you know, there's nothing in there about any kind of reclaims or anything like that. So a really great question. Until we kind of see the detail, we can't really answer it at the moment. Once, you know, all I'd say is once the stuff does come out on self-employed, we'll definitely get something out there on this community to just try and make that clear and answer as many of those questions as we can.
Definitely. It seems at this stage, I know there's still a lot more to come out, but it seems at this stage that, you know, the employed are getting protected to some extent and the self-employed are getting protected to some extent, but the business owners, the directors who are actually there, you know, who've been taking the big risks, don't seem to be getting the same level of cover, which is a sort of worry. And disappointing. Hopefully they'll come out with something which supports us as well.
Yeah, I know it's really tough, but I think the scale of what needs to be done, they are tackling what they think is perhaps the more straightforward first. And so that's the approach I think that is being taken at the moment.
It's all happening so quickly. I suppose we've also got to take into account that they're having to react unprecedentedly quickly as well, and as frustrating as it might be, you can't do everything at once, can you? And we've just got to kind of just wait it out a little bit.
I think that's it, because with all of these initiatives, it, you know, comes a colossal amount of admin, of the need for, you know, new IT systems. You know, one of the reasons things are taking so long on things like the SSP refunds is they don't have bank details for everyone, so they can't just automatically, you know, refund to everyone. So it's a real challenge for all of these organisations, whether it be HMRC or local authorities, to really get their staff in place to answer all these queries, whilst all trying to, look after the health and welfare of their own staff and adhere to all the social distancing and the lockdown as well. So it's a challenge for everyone, and I have sympathy for everybody involved in all elements of this process at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Was there anything else to cover? I think we've been through pretty much everything. Oh, personal expenditure.
Yeah, so just got a couple of things then about personal expenditure on the future. What else can we do? Well, regardless of whether we're employed, we're owner-directors, we're self-employed, you just got to look at your personal expenditure too. I know it must feel like the most obvious thing to say, but especially for those people who are business owners, you can get so hung up on trying to make sure you're reducing all your business expenditure. Just think of your personal expenditure. Is there anything you can do during this time? The mortgage payment holiday got a lot, it was really high profile. A lot of the lenders are allowing online applications now, and I can tell you that ones that were done last week have been approved already. I know of quite a few of those. So that's certainly something I would consider. Any finance you've got, whether that be personal loans or credit cards, bank loans, speak to your finance company about any potential repayment holidays you can get on those. Leisure subscriptions, so can you pause your gym membership? A lot of the larger gyms that can sustain this are offering people to pause monthly subscriptions. You might want to pause your Sky Sports subscription because there's no new sports on there to watch. Any little thing that you can do can really help. I've started to see some information this morning as well about the utilities. So British Gas, other utility companies are looking at what they can do to help in terms of pushing bills back, pausing any kind of disconnections, and I believe the water companies are looking at their options as well. So the other one is personal council tax as well. So any bill you've got personally that you feel like you're going to struggle to meet, just phone them, but just accept that during this time, call volumes are going to be very high. So try not to let that add to your anxiety, really. But just working through that personally can help you. If you're self-employed, you'll have less outgoings, but also for like the people you've just mentioned, Mike, who rely on dividends from their company, it will have that knock-on effect, because if you can reduce your personal expenditure, the normal dividends that you take, you can then reduce, and that puts less pressure on your business bank account as well. Yeah,
absolutely. Brilliant. Yeah, I know from personal experience, yesterday I spent 2 hours on hold to the bank to talk about the mortgage, only to eventually get through and say, well, we'll get back to you in 7 days.
Yeah,
so that's really helpful. But they're under unprecedented demand as well. It's just a case of just sticking with it and trying to remain as calm as possible, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So with all that in mind, I just wanted to finish on a more positive kind of, let's think beyond COVID. So, just try and think of what's going to happen after these 3 months. Has any of this taught you how you could run your business more efficiently? In terms of maybe the way you're working, in terms of the costs that are in your business, and then think positively about your income streams. If you're one of these people who's had to adapt the way you deliver what you do, is there a way that you can replicate that, after COVID, and also layer it on top of what you did before? So then you've got, an extra income stream. And also think about your pipeline after lockdown. So at the moment, understandably, a lot of people are focused on what am I going to do about these 3 months. We need to be thinking about, okay, what we're going to do after the 3 months, when everyone can't wait to get out of the house and go to meetings and go to networking events. So, use this time to really think about, is there anything I can do to line up some work after that period?
Yeah, and definitely.
And just keep your eye on this LinkedIn group. Obviously the breadth of expertise we've got, we're all putting those updates on that we think will help each other. And just keep an eye on that government website, because things are changing with all these initiatives, and we will obviously try to keep you all updated on that. But it has been changed, the format of that information now, and done for more helpfully in a way that we've been doing with our clients before that, of what's available, when will it be available, how do I get it? So just keep an eye on that, but keep an eye on the future too.
Yeah, excellent. I suppose just to finish on a positive as well, a couple of clients that I work with who operate internationally are starting to see some progress with some of the work abroad. So one who works in exhibitions is seeing new exhibitions popping up in September. So they're planning on getting cracking again. Another one has been rearranged from March to August. So there's obviously some confidence that there's going to be capacity to be able to deliver that in August. So we are looking at that sort of shorter window, and hopefully, we'll see the same sort of level of optimism once we get through these next 3 weeks as well.
Great.
Okie dokie. Well, thanks so much. Thanks so much for that, Helen. That's really, really helpful. I think you answered loads and loads of questions. Some websites there. Do you want to just flick back, Helen, to those websites to go and find out some more information around business support, around the business interruption loan scheme. There's quite a few questions that are related to the finance side of things that are more HR questions, and we are lining up another webinar with Olga Cross, who is an HR consultant, experienced HR consultant, who's going to be able to answer all of those questions. But in the meantime, here's Helen's contact details. If you need to get in contact with her about any of those deeper questions on the finance side of things. And we'll keep in touch with everybody on the next series of webinars. We're going to be covering HR, we're going to be covering sales, communications, marketing, all the things that we need to be focusing on in the next weeks and months to try and make sure that we do come out of this in a fit and healthy position. So keep tuned for the latest updates, and we'll be in touch soon. Thanks, everyone. Cheers, Helen. Bye.
Bye.